I'm absolutely elated and moved by this special Al-Quds Day. For the first time in 40 years in South Africa, not only has most of the people come out to the streets to support the day of the oppressed and exploited, but also the people of Bo Kaap in their own particular issues around gentrification, about the city becoming very racist and becoming very class in terms of the class conflict. So we today, quite fortuitously, are here in support of the people of Bo Kaap, but more particularly support of the people of Palestine who faces this persecution for over 100 years. The massacre, the murders, the incarceration, the bombing, and of course the destroying of homes and the complete erasure. We today commit ourselves once more, not only on a yearly basis, but every day, to rid ourselves of this violent occupation and to rid ourselves, in fact, of any forms of gentrification and discrimination. So we support the Bo Kaap community, we support the Palestinian community, and we support that the liberation of Al-Aqsa is in our sights as in our grasp. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give Jannah to Firdaus for all of the martyrs.
So I did my master's in architecture last year, and essentially my project tracked the evolution of the Bo Kaap in terms of both architecture and the social practices that happened in the Bo Kaap. So it looks specifically at the slums, at the colonization of the Cape. It looks at the Slum Area Act. Before that, it looks at slavery and the abolition of slavery, and then the Group Areas Act, and more recently it looks at gentrification. So my paper basically tracks how architecture and the urban fabric has changed over time based on the change in these social practices. So it looks at the importance of the street, the importance of the stoep, the importance of the lane and the courtyard, and how these important social spaces contribute to the social cohesion of a community. In terms of the stoep, it looks at the stoep as the mediation between the public realm of the street and the private realm of the house, but it also looks at it as a space where the house, these small houses in the Bo Kaap, extends out into the stoep and becomes part of the street and part of the public space.
If you talk about the Bo Kaap, it's historically known as the cradle of Islam, and it's also the place where most of our heritage, Islamic heritage, is. The Awal Mosque, the very first mosque, the very first cemetery, the very first Salah was made here, Jumu'ah Salah was made here in defiance when Sheikh Twanguru came out of prison. He requested for the Dutch authorities to have a Jumu'ah congregational prayer. And of course they denied him because under Dutch rule, Islam was not allowed to be practiced. The Muslim community at the time, in defiance of that law, still went ahead, and yet the punishment for practice religion during the time when the Dutch rule was death. And I think it was that spirit that we are here today to continue to protect the heritage of Islam and the heritage of Bo Kaap and the entire Bo Kaap as a whole. Because if we look at heritage, most people look at heritage as simply buildings and molds and things, etc. We look at heritage, which includes our lifestyle, our adhan that they want to silence. We also look at our heritage of our own culture, in terms of our khadats, in terms of our Maulud celebrations here in Bo Kaap, and so on. So that is what we're here for, to protect our heritage and to stop gentrification, which have disastrous implications if Bo Kaap must be gentrified. I think the spirit that we see here today tells us that we will be able to sustain it. We've got a number of programs. Part of this is to educate our young people around activism and to make sure they are properly politically educated. And that remains in the form of workshops, in the form of engaging them. We can scream, we can do all of this what we're doing, but at the end of the day, we must ensure that the next generation are educated politically on issues of Bo Kaap and broadly. And that is very extremely important for us, that we make sure that we leave a young people with a legacy.
In unity we are strength, and we salute the youth for really putting this particular program together. And not only this, but rather the resistance that has been put together here is driven by the young people. And so the feeling is overwhelming. The feeling is truly overwhelming in regard to the fact that we have been blessed by a person and a people who are fasting. And they have identified the necessity for them to come together where they can be able to have iftar and to break the fast. And the spiritual dimension of it is really overwhelming. And I think these are the elements that has preserved Islam, and it will continue to preserve Islam. Islam is not spread through any other system. It is spread through the spirituality of the very pious people who is buried here in the Tanabaru. And so whilst we are in Youth Month, and the reason why we have Youth Month is to acknowledge the contribution, the efforts, the struggle and the sacrifices and the lives given by young people for the liberation of our country and the freedom that we are able to enjoy. They will continue to play a pivotal and a central role for not the future, but today. And so we would want to take a moment to salute them and to be able to tell them, to all the youth, that we celebrate your vibrancy, your energy that you have put in here. And we hope and pray Allah must purify their hearts, keep them firm and steadfast, and at the same time to persevere. Because in the journey ahead of ours, it's going to require all of these particular features and characteristics so that we can be able to overcome the injustice systems that we are challenged with.
I thought that I must come here in possibly the last Friday so that I can feel this atmosphere and draw strength from this atmosphere and to see the hope for the next generation that Alhamdulillah, praise be to God, young people are taking the lead as they did in 1976, as they did in 1980, as they did in 1985. But this time they are saying we are trying to preserve the quality of our freedom, the quality of our lives, the quality of our democracy. And that is why I come here to salute you. I come here also as a Muslim, because this is the place that is the cradle of Islam. This is the place where many generations before you, there were people who were brought here. They were brought here in chains, and they were brought here as exiles, and they were brought here as slaves, and they endured all kinds of suffering, and they were able to rise up and to make the burqa the first point of resistance. When first they wanted to take over the Tanabaru in 1884, it was here that the first march happened, and you are recreating that spirit that was there. And so we want to say that today we add on to what you are doing, and we're giving it a global dimension, because we are saying that even in conditions of freedom and democracy, these are the hardships that we face. The gentrification of this area, the ability to remove our people, to remove our culture, to remove our heritage from the burqa. It is as if those who praise colonialism, those who say that colonialism was good, those who say that colonialism had benefits, that they want to now obliterate the last vestiges of that colonial past in order that their consciences may not be swayed by the fact that there's a reminder of what they did to our slaves, what they did to our exiles, what they did to our people. They want to remove us from their sight in the city so that the tourists are never reminded that here was a place of injustice, incarceration and slavery. And that is why your fight is such an important one.
Many of our forefathers were brought here as political exiles, as slaves and as captured laborers. And the slogan that they had, that they never ever ever lost hope in, was the ayah of Quran, where Allah says, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا أَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And that is something that we find, it makes us very happy that that is also the slogan of President Erdogan. That even in our difficult moments, we must not lose hope, and we must continue, because Allah will make us successful.